video. Today I'm going to be talking about Moldavite stories that I've picked up over the past year through 2019. It's the end of the year now. So I've done several Moldavite videos throughout the year, but there's been a few little stories that I wanted to tell about my experiences with other people and Moldavite that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to run through a few of those. I've got my list here. Okay, I've got eight to run through. So sit back, get comfortable, have a listen, because some of these stories are pretty amazing. So number one, okay, this involves a woman who I met in Ubud in Bali. As you can see, I'm back in the UK at the minute. It's an absolutely beautiful winter morning, actually. As you can see, it's sun's out. You can't not be happy on a day like this, even though it's absolutely freezing. But I'll be back in Ubud soon, so I'm not too worried about that. So the first story involves a woman called Patricia, who I met in Ubud, and we were talking about Moldavite, and she'd had an experience with Moldavite years ago, but hadn't been in contact with a piece for a long while. So I gave her a piece of my Moldavite to hold in her hand. I think it was this piece, actually. I'm trying to get it out of my pocket. There we go. And it's a very strong, powerful piece of Moldavite, this one. And what happened was, she said something pretty profound, and it really kind of summarized what Moldavite really does, I guess. And it's something that I use all the time now, so I use this little line she did. But she held it, and she looked at me and she said, "I feel like I can feel the truth." Now, that's quite profound, and it made me realise that many of my experiences with Moldavite, if not all of them, were really about enhancing energies so that you actually, the truth comes out. So what Moldavite will do is it will enhance positive and negative energies, and those energies then will draw to you back more of what is being put out there, so law of attraction style. And yeah, so if whatever your truth is being, is going out there. So the truth is whatever energy you're currently giving out, that's the truth, right? You can't disguise those energies that are being put out there. So whatever you're putting out there is your truth. Okay, you can't change that. You can't mask that. And so Moldavite is revealing more of that, because it's magnetizing it and making it stronger. And so what I found with me is that people tend to start reacting differently towards me when I have Moldavite. And it's like the good attributes that I have, the positive attributes, are magnified. So that truth is magnified. As are negative elements, by the way. And of course, I've discovered that if you go and look at some of my videos with Marissa Moon about vampires, that's the same thing. That is the truth coming out. That is the truth being magnetized, in that the negative that you're seeing from this being, this vampire, I'm able to see it because the Moldavite is bringing it out more. And when you're particularly sensitive and intuitive, you see those things more around Moldavite. But what my friend Patricia was seeing was the positives within me. And what she actually said was, she said that I looked different. She said I actually looked friendlier when I had, it was actually a Moldavite necklace. I gave her the Moldavite necklace pendant. So when she had the Moldavite pendant in her hand and I wasn't wearing it, she said she looked at me and I seemed, I think she said I seemed less friendly. When I had the pendant on, I seemed a little more friendlier. And which was, I'd never heard anyone say that before. But that makes sense, because I know that before the very first Moldavite piece I had, which was a ring, I noticed that after a couple of weeks of wearing it, people that weren't particularly friendly towards me were now being friendly with me. So it's very, very interesting, yes. So Moldavite brings out the truth, okay? So that's my first story. My second story, if I can just get my piece of paper with my notes on it out. Yes, so this was very interesting. This was very recent. This was yesterday actually. I'm back in the UK now, and the one of the amazing things about Moldavite is that you will attract more people who have Moldavite around. And don't forget, Moldavite's rare. Okay, it can only be found in a small region in Europe around southern Germany, Czech Republic, and it's pretty expensive for a crystal. And I've met a lot of people who are really into crystals, and many of them have not only never heard of Moldavite, but never had any experience with it. So as far as crystals go, it's not like the typical rose quartzes and citrines and, ones that everyone knows. It's pretty rare. So to keep bumping into people who have Moldavite and meeting people and making friends with people who have Moldavite randomly is pretty bizarre. But it happens to me all the time. I mean, pretty much every month, I'd say, on average, I will meet someone who has Moldavite or who knows about Moldavite. And many of them have gone to become my friends, if not all of them, in fact. So, yes, that's what Moldavite will do. And I met someone here, of all places, back in the UK, in my hometown of Nottingham, which isn't a massive place, and yet I'm back here a few days. I've already met someone who has Moldavite and knows about Moldavite. They're actually a healer. Again, that's another thing that's happened with me. I just keep meeting healers all the time since I've got Moldavite, and she's one of them. When we were talking about Moldavite, she knows more about crystals than me, a lot more, and she told me that Moldavite is different to other crystals. First of all, it's not really a crystal, it's a tektite, technically, but we're going to call it a crystal anyway, just for the sake of ease. But where Moldavite is different from crystals, and where I think tektites are different from crystals, is that because tektites come from other planets, from meteors, or or created through meteor contact with Earth. She explained it as a crystal, crystals come from the earth, okay? They're created in this earth, and they work on your inner self, okay? So they create changes within you, whereas Moldavite and other tektites create change in your outer world. And again, I'd never heard this before. This was just yesterday. And yeah, it makes sense because, of course, Moldavite is all about your enhancing your energies, but it brings manifestation to you much quicker and much more pronounced. So that makes sense. Moldavite is actually, I'm sure it does inner work as well, by the way, but why it's such a crystal of transformation, a tektite of transformation, is because it's bringing things to you from the outer towards you through manifestation. So that's something I heard recently. So that's a really interesting story there, as to just why it's such a powerful crystal, because it's not actually a crystal, it's a little bit different. I'm trying to get my notes again. I should really just hold on to them. So another story, this is back in Bali again, in Ubud, which is the spiritual centre of Bali where I was living. And there was a guy who I met, and I've met him once, and second time I met him, I think we were in this taxi together, just the two of us, and all of a sudden he started feeling a bit weird, and I noticed he was yawning a lot, and he said he felt really tired and just off, like he needed to just take a little bit of time to just sit with himself and to meditate. So I said, broke off the conversation, said, yeah, you go ahead, you do what you need to do. And so he's there with his eyes shut, doing his meditation, trying to feel better. And after a couple of minutes, he opens his eyes again and looks at me. He says, Tim, you wearing that Moldavite? And I was, because I always wear my Moldavite. I had my pendant on. And he said, because I watched a video of yours for the first time talking about Moldavite, and you were talking about some of the symptoms about the Moldavite flush in particular, where people experience nausea and headaches and things like that. And he said, I think I've got that. And so I gave him the pendant, took it off, put it into his hand, and he was like, yeah, it's the Moldavite. And that's the first experience I had of someone actually feeling ill around my Moldavite without even touching it. Okay? And this guy had it bad. Now, he actually owns Moldavite now. He was so curious in this, but he owned it. So this is what I want to say to people. Just because you experience a little bit of discomfort at first, that's no reason to think it's bad or dangerous or to take it off or to just leave it. Stick with it. Because this guy went and bought Moldavite, and he told me that after a week or two, the Moldavite flush went away. He felt fine. And I've had that experience as well, by the way, with the piece I just showed you. This one actually gave me Moldavite flush, which none of the other pieces I've ever had have done. I've had 3 or 4. And this one maybe gave me headaches and made me feel really weird. And since then, I actually have come in contact with other Moldavite, which has maybe not feel too good as well. So there are different strengths of pieces, obviously, but it disappeared after maybe a week. So you've just got to stick with it. You know, it's helping you, it's aiding you, it's telling you there's some shit you need to deal with. So allow it to do that. Okay. So yeah, that's my story from my friend Suk. I also met a friend of mine. So this is an interesting one. There's a crystal shop in Ubud in Bali. It's the only one I've seen that actually sells Moldavite. They have a big tray of it in there. It's pretty much all gone now within a few months because I've sent so many people there to buy Moldavite. I think I'm their best customer. But the first time I ever went in there to pick out a piece for one of my coaching clients, there was a woman in there, and she was already on the counter, and she had all the Moldavites in the box. And she looked straight at me as I walked in and said, "Tim?" And I didn't recognize her at first, but she knows me from my videos, from my YouTube channel. And she actually lives in Ubud, which is a small town in the middle of Bali. So again, what are the chances? It just keeps happening. I keep getting drawn to people with Moldavite. No matter where I am, no matter how small the place is, someone with Moldavite will turn up. And she was right there, and she actually helped me pick out this piece of Moldavite, which I've just shown you. And when she looked at this piece, she said, yeah, this one, she said it felt spiky to her, I think was her term. As in, this one is a little bit mischievous, and it's strong, and it's going to produce rapid transformation, but it might be a little bit uncomfortable. And that's exactly basically what happened when I bought it. I actually bought it for a client, but decided to keep it myself because it was so strong, it was making me feel nauseous and giving me headaches. And I never get headaches, by the way. So I knew there was some power to it. I just wanted to keep it to myself and see what it could do. And I'll talk about that in other videos, what it has done. But yeah, Barbara knows so much about Moldavite. She actually gave an energy healing session with me, and I had this huge chunk of Moldavite on my forehead with a Herkimer diamond there, and Herkimer diamonds enhance the Moldavite, so it was even stronger. Yeah, that was quite an experience. And yeah, generally came out of the session feeling pretty damn good, actually. But yes, that's another interesting Moldavite story with my friend Barbara. If you're watching, hello. Or any of you who are watching, hello, by the way. But yeah, one of the stories Barbara told me, she's got so many stories about Moldavite, I can't even remember half of them, to be honest. But one of those stories was that her Moldavite, she believes she showed me it actually, and it had a crack in the casing it was in the setting, and she believes that it's the Moldavite trying to get out so that more light can get in. So where the actual setting was, obviously, if it's wrapped around the Moldavite, it's actually preventing light getting in. And she believed it was trying to get through, so it broke the setting to allow that to happen. And the funny thing about that is I have another story with another woman who thinks, or who we think the same thing is happening to, and double story here. So I was in this is in Ubud again, and I am at a restaurant. Actually, there was going to be an ecstatic dance night there. I remember now, ecstatic dance. And I'm just walking out of the toilet, and a woman's walking into the toilet, and she just stops, looks at me, and sort of pulls her head back like that. Says, "Tim." And again, it's someone who I've never met before, but I know her from social media. She's on my Instagram, and she's just randomly in Bali. She's from the United States, and she's just randomly in Bali, and there we are. We bump into each other again. So we get talking, and she's telling me about how she has Moldavite, no surprise there, and her Moldavite, she said, was starting to dissolve, and she was looking at it each day, and it was getting less and less in the middle of this Moldavite. It's like almost like a hole was being bored in there, and she couldn't work out why. And so I asked my friend Barbara, and she said that she thinks the same thing is probably happening with that Moldavite, because my friend, this is Dakota, her name is, said that it was happening around where the setting is. I think she has some sort of metal setting, and underneath it was being eroded away. So again, is it the Moldavite trying to allow more light in? I don't know, but it's certainly interesting, these stories. Okay, let's move on to another Moldavite story. This time, I've talked about this one before, but this is my friend Marissa Moon. I've done lots of videos with, a couple of videos on vampires, to go and check those ones out. But she had a Moldavite which moved on her, okay? And she has talked about this before, but I'll briefly go through it again because it's such a good story. But she puts this Moldavite ring that she had on her bedside table, and heard a noise in the night. And I think she was just dropping off to sleep. She wasn't totally asleep, but this noise made her kind of get up, and her immediate thought was, is that my Moldavite? And yeah, she looked on the floor. It had gone off the table and onto the floor, like it had almost jumped off. So Moldavite does move, Moldavite does disappear, and this is leading on to my story about this Moldavite piece again, because this one, I did a video on this, that it actually disappeared on me. I looked everywhere for this piece of Moldavite and did not find it, okay? And it's returned again. And I know the bag that it was in, I looked inside, there's a little bag that was given to me when I bought it. And a few days ago, when I got back to the UK, it was in there again. Now, I'm not a forgetful type of person. I remember stuff really well. I'm not the sort of person who loses lots of stuff either. I really, really don't. I'm not absent-minded at all. So I'm pretty certain it disappeared on me and has come back again. I'm glad it has, because it's a beautiful piece, and it's a very strong piece, and it's created a lot of change in my life. So I'm pretty pleased it's back. Yeah, so there you go. Disappearing Moldavite has returned. There you go. So to my last story, which is specific to me, and this happened when I got back to the UK a few weeks ago. And when I was a kid, I used to write a lot of stories. And, you know, that's a passion I still have today, and I'm actually writing a novel now. And this novel actually includes Moldavite in it, although it won't specifically be called Moldavite. But when I was a kid, I used to write all sorts of adventure stories and make-believe, and I used to really love that. and it's just something I neglected as an adult, and I'm trying to get back into it now. And yeah, I was sifting through some of these old stories that I hadn't seen for many years, you know. When I was writing from an early age, from about 5-6 years old, and one of the stories I found was called The Glass Bead, and I wrote it when I was about 10 years old, and I was reading it again. It's just a few pages long, and I read it, and my jaw just fell open on the floor. The story is about a glass bead which is inside a clover, and I think it's a plastic clover, and I think I'm in the story, I think it's me in the story, or some kid anyway, and you were supposed to rub the bead 3 times and it would change colour, and then you got 3 wishes. Now, the amazing thing about this is, in the story, the bead comes from the island of Bali. I wrote that when I was 10 years old. Okay, now my geography was good at that age, I admit. But the fact that I wrote about Bali when I was 10 years old, misspelt, but definitely the island of Bali, and I end up there decades later, and this is my home, this is the place I call my home now, and I've never felt like that anywhere else, is pretty damn incredible, and really makes you think a lot about things like destiny and where I meant to go and what our life path really is. But not only that, but this is a glass bead, and one of the colours it would turn was green when you rubbed it. Now, if that's not Moldavite, I don't know what it is. But yeah, and it grants you wishes, just like a Moldavite does with helping you manifest things. So yeah, this clover, or this glass bead, originated from Bali, and there's a man in the story who originally comes from Bali and explains this to the kid in the story. So I found that out a couple of weeks ago, and that's pretty amazing. So yeah, something to think about. I think, yeah, I guess Moldavite and Bali were just meant to be for me. Yeah, so that completes my Moldavite stories. There are other ones which I've told throughout the year. You can go and check out some of my older videos, but these were a few which I hadn't really talked about that much. What can I say? Moldavite is just an amazing crystal. It's an amazing tektite, I should say. And the more I hear about it, the more people I meet who are telling me stories about it, the more I'm convinced that this is something that can be beneficial in people's lives to help them transform. And that's the reason I continue to talk about it and continue to vlog about it, continue to do these videos. I just find it fascinating. And it's all, I keep saying, it's all a big experiment with me. Okay? There's so much more going on in this reality than any of us know. And I only talk about things that I have experience of. And I go out there and I try and test it and see what happens. And I really recommend that everyone out there does this with Moldavite, with other crystals. I'm trying to do this with other crystals now. I've actually got a rose quartz crystal recently, which is doing some great stuff for my heart, I believe, in healing that. I'm going to try a few other things as we go into 2020. But yeah, again, I'm excited now to see what Moldavite is doing with my clients as well. Now that I'm coaching, I actually give away a free Moldavite piece for my coaching clients, my monthly coaching clients. And no surprise, stuff has started to happen in their lives. I've got lots of stories about the things that have happened in those people's lives since they've encountered Moldavite as well. Money coming into their lives, quick transformations, amazing big manifestations and upheavals, and yeah, it's all fascinating. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Timothy.Phoenix is my Instagram account, and don't forget Timothy Phoenix is my YouTube channel. And thank you for watching, and hope you have an amazing new year. And yeah, I'll see you all in 2020 for some more videos. Hasta luego.